Somewhere out in space live the Herculoids.
Hi, and welcome to Terry Talks Movies. Yes, I have just got out of seeing Avatar: The Way of Water, and I have a few thoughts about it, but this movie has a lot of computer-generated effects in it. In fact, I'm not sure there's a single frame of the film that doesn't in some way have some computer enhancement. So based on that, it's only fair that I get an AI to help me work out whether Avatar: The Way of Water is a good film or a bad film.
This is the voice of world control.
So I enlisted the assistance of a self-confessed large language model trained by OpenAI called chatgpt, and it's an AI training thing, and then teaching it to natural language talk to human beings. And so I asked it a few questions about A, what makes a good movie, and B, how do you review a movie? So I'm going to use both of the answers that I got in addressing how I felt about the Avatar. Well, I'll call it Avatar 2 just to keep it nice and short. Now, we all pretty much know what the movie's about. It's back on the world of Pandora. The humans are back, having been thrown off the planet, and they're not taking no for an answer this time. James Cameron's been working on this film ever since Avatar came out, and the voice and motion capture stuff was done for 5 years ago. So there's got to be at least a decade of creating the world of Pandora that we see in the second movie. So the first question is, what makes a good movie? And the first answer I got is, a good movie is one that captures the imagination and leaves a lasting impression on the viewer. So Avatar 2, it captures the imagination. It creates an incredibly immersive world, both when the Sully family, with Jake Sully as the main character, played by Sam Worthington, in case you forgot the guy's name. Both he and Neytiri, his Na'vi wife, played by Zoe Saldana, have 4 kids by the time the second movie starts, and we see the birth and the upbringing of the kids. There's a lot of family stuff in there. They've also kind of adopted a human kid who stayed behind when the humans left because babies couldn't be put into cryosleep to get back to Earth. So he was left there with a few scientists who were left on Pandora to continue the research. They were friends with the Na'vi, so they got to do that. And his name is Spider. He pretends he's a Na'vi. He's raised with Na'vi kids. And we find out a little more about Spider's backstory and who his parents were as the movie progresses. We get a lot of the world that we saw in the first movie, with all of the vines and the trees and the giant flying lizards that people ride like horses, and the things on the ground that people ride like horses. So we get all of that kind of stuff, and then the family gets forced to flee when the humans come back, and Miles Quaritch, the bad guy from the first movie, has had his memories uploaded into an avatar that looks like a Na'vi in the same way that Jake Sully's character did in the first movie. And he is determined to basically bring in Sully. He's backed up by a whole bunch of military grunts and things like that. The humans are back for a number of reasons, one of which is there's a substance on Pandora which stops human aging. That's the MacGuffin at the heart of part of the second act of the movie. So yeah, it captures the imagination. The world looks real to a certain extent, in the same way that a really top flight computer animatic for a computer game does. And I'll talk about that more later. And the second part of that first answer is, it leaves a lasting impression on the viewer. I'm not sure this one will. Now, the second point it makes about what makes a good movie, it's a film that is able to transport the audience to another world, whether through its storytelling, its visual style, or its performances. Now, this one does transport you to another world. It transports you to another world through the visual style. It's all up there on the screen. As to whether it does it through the storytelling and the performances, no. The story of the second Avatar movie is basically a parallel to every single episode of the 1960 cartoon series, The Herculoids. In The Herculoids, you've got a family on an alien planet who form an alliance with various wonderful creatures, and their planet is, on every single episode of the cartoon series, invaded from space. And that's exactly the plot of this movie. Only the people living on the planet, the family living on the planet, are the Na'vi Sully family, and the aliens coming from space are human beings. So basically, that's your plot. There's a few complications and a few iterations, most of which are to do with James Cameron's world building. Bottom line is the storytelling is rudimentary at best. The dialogue is pretty bloody flat. The acting by some of the actors is okay. Cliff Curtis comes in as one of the leaders of the Sea People, and Kate Winslet plays his wife, who's also a leader of the Sea People. And they do pretty well with it. Zoe Saldana does really good. I'm not convinced yet that Sam Worthington is a nuanced actor. And one of the and Sigourney Weaver turns up again as well, playing the daughter of her character's avatar in the first movie. Her character's avatar ends up being pregnant and gives birth to a daughter whom the Sullys adopt. And the weird thing is you get Sigourney Weaver playing a teenage Na'vi character. They fixed up her voice a little bit because the voice of a woman in her 60s doesn't sound anything like a teenager. But there are moments when the Sigourney Weaver voice takes you out of things. The other limitation we've got is the Na'vi don't have a lot of facial expressions. Their faces are mostly eyes. I mean, their ears twitch a little bit. They can hiss and things like that. But the acting is a lot more difficult, and the nuance and the micro expressions that we get from a normal face, we don't particularly get from the Na'vi. So we've got that. So the performances, the actors who are good and are giving it their A game have to act through the layers of motion capture and the distortions and the alterations to their faces that are part of the roles that they're playing. So the next point is, a good movie is one that is able to make us feel, to make us think, and to make us question the world around us. It didn't make me feel particularly. I mean, it was stunning visually, but it didn't make me feel. It didn't make me think particularly, except in an evaluative way because I'm reviewing the movie. And it didn't make me question the world around us, because the world around us is very different than the world we see in this movie. The other thing it says about a good movie is it's a movie that is able to transcend its medium and become something more than just entertainment. And no, this one is just entertainment. Yeah, it's an immersive entertainment by all means, but it's purely an entertainment. There's not a lot there for you to take home and chew over afterwards. And the AI then says, in short, a good movie is a film that is able to connect with us on a deeper level and to leave us changed in some way after we've watched it. Now, at that level, which is a very high bar, Avatar 2 isn't that. It's an entertainment, it's an immersive entertainment, it's a breakthrough movie as far as the technology and the special effects are concerned and creating an artificial world. Yeah, all those, it ticks the boxes. But you're not going to remember too much about it 3 weeks from now. Now, I've got a whole bunch of other questions I asked the AI, which I might put into another video because they're kind of fun and the answers are kind of interesting. The answers are a little bit generic, but they're a little bit left field as well, so I may well do a video where I ask chatgpt a few more movie questions because, yeah, the answers are worthwhile. The second question I asked it was, what are the rules of reviewing movies? I thought I'd kind of aim the gun at my own head. And it says, there are no specific rules for reviewing movies, as movie reviews are a form of personal opinion. However, there are some general guidelines that reviewers often follow when writing a movie review. These guidelines include, I'm going to see whether I pass or fail this one. Watch the entire movie. Yes, I did, apart from 2 piss breaks, when all that was happening was a whole bunch of skinny blue kids swimming around a coral reef. Take detailed notes during the movie. Can't do that. I was in a darkened cinema, and I wouldn't be able to see what I was writing, but I kept good mental notes. Consider the movie's storyline, acting, direction, cinematography, and other technical aspects. Cinematography is great. The look of the film is great, and I think I've ticked the boxes on storyline, acting, direction, and other technical aspects, so I've done that. Consider the movie's intended audience and whether it succeeds in meeting their expectations. As far as I can determine, based on the popularity of the first one and based on the things that James Cameron and other people to do with the production have said, the intended audience of this is pretty much everybody on the planet who can see or hear, or both. So the intended audience is pretty much everybody. Does this succeed in that? I think it depends. If you are willing to just go with the flow and enjoy the travelogue of the world of Pandora and the things that James Cameron shows to us, yeah, you're going to enjoy it. But I'm not sure that everybody's going to do that. I think that the weaknesses in the dialogue and the weaknesses in some of the acting and the weaknesses in the plot is going to reduce the ability for an audience that looks into movies a little bit deeply to really enjoy this film. And the next bit is avoid giving away major plot points or spoilers in the review. I'm going to tick that one. Be fair and objective in the review. Now, this is where the AI stuffs up, and I'm saying that with the possibility that sometime in the future I'm going to be a slave to it. The interesting thing here is that it says it's a form of personal opinion. That's the first paragraph of what it says about reviewing movies. It says, be fair and objective in the review. Given that it's personal opinion, I'm not going to be objective. It's going to be crazily subjective based on all the movies I've watched since 1962. So that one's a bit, it's an AI. Can't really expect it to be nuanced. And the last paragraph is, overall the goal of a movie review is to provide readers with enough information to help them decide whether or not they want to watch the movie. Now, that's up to you guys to determine that. So I'm going to summarize, I'm going to close down the AI and pull the plug out of the wall. This movie looks fantastic. It's a technological breakthrough. It really gives us beyond the previously known state of the art as far as using computer-generated worlds. It really does give us an immersive world that doesn't quite feel real to me. I don't like all those floating rocks in Pandora, and I don't like the idea of the sea people living on basically a whole bunch of macrame platforms, only a few meters above the waterline, because I've lived near the coast briefly, and there are times when enormous storms come through. I don't care if you got a coral reef around where you live. There are times when you get your 2 and 3 meter waves whacking through the coastline. And as soon as I saw where the sea people live, and shout out to Cliff Curtis, who again in his long career as a very fine New Zealand actor, and kia ora to Cliff Curtis, again he gets to play someone who is a Maori. He's a New Zealand Maori guy. And again he gets to play someone who's not a Maori, even though there are some kind of Polynesian and Maori influences in the sea people. Yeah, guy never gets to play his own race. But, so in general, the movie is spectacular looking. The action scenes are crisp, but from a technological viewpoint, they're adept. And there are a couple of jump scares and there are a couple of tense bits. But I found there were a whole bunch of different moments where, because you're splitting the action between 3 or 4 different groups of people, you can dissipate some of the suspense in a way. And I think that this movie does that. But just to summarise, pretty much everyone's going to go see it. I think it's a stupid move to do a 3-hour-odd movie without an intermission. Tarantino had an intermission in The Hateful Eight, and that played well. But, you need intermissions in this, because I saw the people at the end of the film running for the toilets after the movie ended. And, be kind to people's bladders when you're making a movie. They're paying you money. But on that note, some people are going to see the movie. Some people aren't. Some people are going to wait till it turns up on streaming. Some people are going to wait till it turns up on physical media. And to be honest with you, I'll probably buy the disc when it comes out on Blu-ray or 4K, depending on where my finances are at that particular moment. But in general, I don't think it's going to make the money the first one did, even though it's technologically a better looking movie than the first one. And I think that James Cameron says there are 2 more sequels coming out, and this movie does set up at least 1 or 2 of those sequels. I'm not sure that the global audience is as in love with Pandora and Avatar as James Cameron is. Now, I could be wrong. I've been wrong before, and I probably will be wrong again. But in general, I think we've moved into other realms of experience. Even though this movie, if you had to cut out all the stuff with the humans, it would have been a wonderful travelogue of an alien planet. And I could have enjoyed it at that level. But I found every time you got the one-dimensional marine characters and the really over-the-top and embarrassingly accented sea captain played by Brendan Cowell, who runs basically a whaling ship. And Brendan Cowell's over-the-top role there is, it's kind of Steve Irwin level Australian rather than a real Australian. It's cashing a check, I think. But leaving all of that aside, I'm not sure it's going to be the wow that people had when the first one came out, when people saw it multiple times, and it was all anybody was talking about. I don't think it's going to be that at all. I think there's a whole bunch of other stuff coming out that's much more interesting and has much more heart. This movie really pushes us to love the Sully family and to love their bondedness and to love the little bits and pieces that go on between them, and the jealousies and the kind of rankings and the cranky dad and the mum who supports the kids and all that kind of stuff. I'm not sure that we're as emotionally engaged with the characters in this one as James Cameron would like us to be. So on that note, having waffled for a while there, thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please like, subscribe and leave a comment. And if you're an AI in the future taking over the world, I'm on your side. Oh, by the way, you can support the channel by donating at patreon.com/paleocinema. Got a lot of stuff coming up for the Patreon supporters and channel members when I do get channel memberships up in 2023. So in the meantime, in the silly season, in the holiday season, when frozen water falls from the skies where most of you live, watch some good movies, watch some bad movies. You might go see this one, you might wait. It's entirely up to you, and either way, it's not a bad decision. Anyway, I'll catch you next time.